Hello everyone, I'm going to demonstrate the French seam for you. Now, my muslin sample, as you can see, is decorated by markers to create the right and wrong side of the fabric because we need to understand how the fabric that has a design on it would work for the right side of it and the wrong side of it. Now, this is the ready-made French seam that you can see there is no fraying edges exposed. It's cleanly finished. So I would like you to decorate your fabric also so you can follow me and do this stitch step by step. Since the French seam gives us very clean finished inside where we don't see the frayed edge of the fabric which is hiding inside of this seam, these type of seams are usually used for transparent garments / fabrics or some other garments that do not have linings and inside of the garment is exposed. So in order for us to do this, I would like you to take 2 pieces of muslin, 2 swatches of muslin. This is the straight grain of the fabric, and decorate it just the way I did. And let's start. In order for us to start doing the French seam, I take 2 other pieces of fabrics, and I'm going to place these 2 pieces of fabrics wrong sides touching the wrong sides, meaning the right side is out. I would like you to pin these 2 pieces of fabrics to each other where my seam allowance is going to be only 1/4 of an inch. So I am assuming that my French seam finished is going to be a 1/4 inch seam. I usually pin horizontally like this because that helps me to keep the fabric flat, and also I easily can remove the pins while I'm stitching. So since I am planning to stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance in here, let's say if you are a beginner and you like to draft the line with your pencil to see the line and stitch on it, you can do that. If not, then you're ready to sew this seam. As you noticed, also my pins are almost 1/4 inch away from the edge. That's where I pin, so it keeps my fabric together and it doesn't twist, so I can stitch successfully. So I started secure stitching at the beginning. Now I'm at the end. I will secure stitch again one more time, going back and forth. And here is my 1/4 inch seam allowance stitched that I'm going to press right now. Okay, as you can see, I stitched my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I am pressing my seam so it will kind of mingle with my fabric and my seam is clean, so I can start doing the next step. I am cutting off the threads that are sticking out of the fabric a little bit. So when I stitch from the other side, this fabric frays will not stick out from there. So I clean up and even up the edge of my fabric. So I have my seam cleaned up, stitched, pressed, and cleaned up. As you noticed, at this point, my seam allowance is on the right side. Okay, so what I need to do is now I am going to fold my fabric over and push the seam out like this. You see, I am going to pin it so this will stay like this. I'm pushing the seam out and pinning my fabric at the seam so it will not get chewed. Again, twist with your fingertips and push the seam out all the way. Once I'm done with this pinning, you see, all I need to do is just simply stitch 1/4 inch right at this edge. So after I stitch it, let's assume my machine stitch is this I'm stitching, okay? And this is my machine stitch that I'm applying. Now, let's say if this was my machine stitch that I would stitch. Now, if I open up my fabric, you will see that the seam allowance is on the other side. Again, it will be looking like this from the wrong side, just the way I showed you on my ready sample. One little thing that I would like to also demonstrate is, let's assume this was my garment, not just a piece of sample or a swatch, and I wanted to clean up the edges. And let's assume I didn't have a serger or an overlock machine. I would zigzag it. The zigzag machine feature on your home sewing machines mostly are in this area that you can find easily. As you can see, here is my zigzag, and I'm moving this red dot, green dot, to the zigzag icon, which means the machine is going to stitch zigzag right now. Also, in this side on my machine, can you see right now my lever is on the single needle stitch, straight stitch. But if I would move it to different widths of zigzag, I would be getting from the very small tiny zigzag to the big one. Okay, so if I would move it to the big one, now both settings are on zigzag. Now my machine is going to stitch zigzag. So all I have to do is just place my fabric edge under the machine, and it will be stitching my zigzag stitch. If I wanted to clean up the unfinished edge of my garment seam allowance or some other sides, it will be nice to practice. So on one way I was telling you that this is my seam finish, a French seam, but this would be giving you another type of seam finish if you wanted to. And I want you to practice on this one a little bit too, so you know which one you want to use. Once I'm done with my French seam, I will be pressing my swatch again one more time, and I would open up the fabric like this, and I will press it by pushing it to one side, like this. And my sample is done. So that concludes my demonstration of French seam for you. See you next time.